first from Pranjahridaya, who lives at Padmaloka Retreat Centre, which is the ordination training centre for men in the UK, but serving much wider than that. And Pranjahridaya has lived there for a while now. And I first met him very briefly when he was here at Adasthana many years ago doing a 5-month Dharma Life course. And then he went to live at Padmaloka. And Pranjahridaya has a lovely, warm smile and a really kind of infectious laugh. And sometimes when I've sat with Pranjahridaya at dinner at Padmaloka, you get the warm smile, the infectious laugh, but also a really wise mind that wants to talk about really important things and the meaning of life. And it's this lovely sort of mix of having a serious conversation about something really important, speckled with an infectious laugh and a very kind of warm smile. So over to you, Pranjahridaya.
Thank you very much, Kshantikara. Yeah, wonderful, isn't it, when people introduce you in such a way? And just to say, so I'm like, yeah, I think this is my first time giving a talk like this, online, and it was the first time I've given a talk for quite a while, actually. But so it might take a little bit of getting used to. I've got you on this screen in front of me here, and I've got my friend Joris sat behind, also with this beaming smile, and I've got the camera, which is kind of me actually looking at you. So yeah, just sort of getting used to that. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you, Kshantikara, for sort of inviting me and others onto this. The first thing I wanted to say, just to sort of to get it in here, just because I might forget, is this talk, The Taste of Freedom, you can watch it on video. There's a recording of it online. If you search The Taste of Freedom Vimeo, I think, Sangharakshita, so Sangharakshita, The Taste of Freedom Vimeo, it comes up and you can watch the lecture. Absolutely fantastic, highly recommended, seeing the man in person. I think you do get a sense of somebody who's really just embodying what he's talking about, someone that really is alive, on fire with sort of this kind of free-flowing energy. But yes, I'm going to talk about habit and moving from habit to creativity. And then I'm going to finish with saying something about how we might do that. So I'm going to kind of follow similar to Sadhanandi. I'm going to first talk about habit, then talk about creativity. So that's kind of roughly how I'm going to divide it up. And then lastly, how we kind of might make that transition. And being only having 15 minutes, it's going to be very selective. So this is certainly not an all-encompassing vision of how we do that. We do that with the whole Dharma life, our whole lives. But firstly, habit. And as is often fun with these things, you can go to the dictionary and they can tell you what words mean. So I'm going to say what, at least what the Google dictionary, whatever dictionary it is they use, told me what habit is. And it says here, a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So we might be thinking, we can relate to that. We've got our habits, maybe like what Sadhanandi was saying last night. There's, maybe to do with food, maybe to do with, status or these other things. But in this lecture, Bhante, Sangharakshita, he says something quite radical. He doesn't just say that we have habits. He says that we are habits. Or he says we are habit even. We are our habits. We are our actions. And in a way, that's kind of like the big idea of habit that I wanted to sort of present. Not mine, it's Sangharakshita's. We are habits, we are our habits. And this is very a different way, I think, of viewing what beings are, what we are. We are action, we are energy that has formed a particular way of being and acting in the world. We often maybe think that we're sort of I'm someone that likes to have a good time. I'm someone that works in a nuclear power plant. I don't know why that came to my mind. My dad worked in a nuclear power plant. So, but yeah, well, I don't know, I'm a Buddhist, you know, there's like various things that make me think, oh, that's what makes me who I am. Various different ideas, but to think actually it's our action, it's what we do. Well, it's not just what we do, it's it's the whole tendency of our being. We are action. It's not that we're a person that does things. We are a doing being. We're beings that do. We're also beings that be, but that's maybe another story. So in changing habits, in changing our habitual ways of being, of doing, we're not just or what we're aiming to do is we're not just sort of fiddling around on the surface of our kind of character, although that may happen. We're actually changing fundamentally what we are. We're changing the whole of ourselves. That's the kind of aim with Buddhist practice, total transformation of consciousness, of habit, of who and what we are. And this is what really liberates. This is what really liberates. This is sort of where suffering really originates from. It's from mind, but again, not mind that is a static thing, but as a sort of particular forms of mind, particular habits, ways of being, which bind us to a narrow, deluded, greed-filled, hatred-filled way of mind, way of life, which results in suffering. And that's what it is that we're trying to break free of. And that's what imprisons us. It's habit that imprisons us. It's being stuck, being locked in particular ways of being that are not in accordance with the way things really are, and not in accordance with something much bigger, which I'll maybe say about in a bit later. But I was thinking with myself, just to kind of be a bit more personal around this, I think, well, something that I feel about increasingly more aware of is, I mean, it's hard to pin it down with one word, but something of a kind of perfectionism. I think this is a habit that I am, a habit that I've kind of sort of relied on my whole life in a way, or I might call it a sort of achievism, or a sort of, I don't know, like just being okay, being together, being kind of having this well-presented package or sort of sense of myself that's, yes, I'm all good, everything's good here, nothing to worry about, you can trust me, all is fine. And I think in my early years, this took the form of just achieving good grades in school and performing, sort of, doing the things that make people say, oh, great, you're doing a good job, you're going to have a good life, you're going to make money, you're going to, be successful, and all will be well. And the sort of, and what's been incredibly revealing is realizing how, I found the Dharma, I found Buddhism, and I thought, fantastic, everything's different now. I've got this whole other way of being, this whole other vision. But then lo and behold, not that far down the line, realizing I'm still trying to be this perfect person. I'm still trying to be this kind of perfect Dharma person, or sort of particularly I've been noticing the sense of just wanting people to really feel like I'm totally reliable, that I'm not a failure, both in terms of relation to other people, but also in relation to myself, having a particular idea of who I think I should be, and kind of desperately trying to believe that's true, desperately trying to kind of make that a reality, rather than being with the fear and the unknowing of what I might actually be, what's there if I stop kind of sort of thinking I know who I really am. So that's a bit about habit. And as it said in that definition, habit is settled or regular tendency or practice, being settled in who we are, kind of ourselves being habit. It's difficult, it's hard to give up. It's hard to give up being me. It's hard to give up being my particular version of me. And I think with this, we need something positive to aim towards. We can't just think, well, I'm going to give it up, cut that out. That's nihilism, that's dangerous. That's kind of probably just becomes a form of self-hatred, which is another habit. It's kind of probably another part of what I was describing in a way with that sort of perfectionism. But and so the positive vision here is the creative mind. It's what Sangha actually calls creative mind. This is what we're moving from, rather than going round and round in this wheel, in this circle, like Shantikara is saying, this kind of hamster wheel that's just going round and round, the same patterns going over and over again, perhaps looking different, but still the sort of same thing, moving towards a creative mind, a creative way of being. And to start with then with creativity, just to say, as a sort of maybe somewhat try and clarify, this word creative, we can have all sorts of ideas of what we think that means, and there's kind of connotations of that. We maybe think it's about, you know, particularly the arts, creating works of art, sculpture, or you know, when you say, oh, you're a really creative person, you know, that's quite a particular kind of person, isn't it, that we have in mind when we say that. But here we're using it in quite a different way. Creative is being used here as sort of, yeah, the opposite of habit. Rather than going round and round, we're creating something fresh, something new, something alive. Really what we're doing is we're recreating ourselves, recreating our minds, create states of mind which are bringing new and alive and fresh modes of operating and living into being. There's that list yesterday that Sadanandi said. I think it's went something like this. I don't think I got it perfectly, but it's like states of awareness, emotional positivity, responsibility, being ourselves responsible, taking responsibility for ourselves and other people. These are all creative. They're not just reacting, not just seeking comfort, not just seeking the quick fix. They're all states of mind which are courageous, reaching out and up and down even into sort of these kind of unknown areas and bringing something entirely new and fresh, exciting even into being. And in another lecture called Mind Reactive, Mind Creative, another absolute classic, I really recommend you listen to that. You may even be able to watch that one. I'm not sure actually, but there Bhante says that the creative mind is freedom itself. The creative mind is freedom itself. So, which again, I think it's quite radical in saying, you know, like, it kind of feels like the positive side of sort of saying we are habit. Positively, it's like we could be creativity ourselves. We could be freedom ourselves. Yeah, so it's not so much that freedom is about what we have, the circumstances we're in. You know, that's all important. We can't discount that. But ultimately, freedom is about a creative mind, about a mind of irreversible creativity. In fact, you have Sangharakshita spoken of stream entry that Kshanti Kaur mentioned as the point of irreversible creativity. That may be paraphrased slightly. I don't know if he said exactly like that. And even enlightenment being just free-flowing creativity. It's not an end point. It's not a sort of static place that you reach and settle down in. It's just this continuous creation of new, something that's alive, which is totally alive and free. But again, I say again, I've not said this yet, have I? But something else it's not. I said it's not just this kind of arty creativity. It's also not just impulse and kind of, how do you say, like kind of just doing what you feel like. You know, we might think that looks really creative, but that could again just be us going down those same old trenches, just in another guise, just sort of going with what's comfortable, what makes us feel like. I think we can often feel kind of, it's a nice idea, isn't it, to feel like we're this really creative person, but actually we might not be particularly artistically inclined. But our creativity, our creative mind can take another form. We have these qualities of awareness, of positive emotion. It's through these that we really find out what form that might take for us. So yes, the creative mind is freedom. He also says it's the spirit of life itself, the spirit of life itself, which I really love. The sense of aliveness, life, more life. So lastly, how might we do that? How do we move from habit to creative mind, from habitual mind, from reactive mind to something creative, something free, something that's really sort of original, with more a capital O, or at least moving towards capital O, maybe middle-sized O. Moving on. Yes, and in the lecture, The Taste of Freedom, Sangharakshita, there's so much that could be said here. I could, just say, well, to really move to creative mind, you just have to practice the Dharma. It's all there, really. But particularly, he mentions other people who we associate with has a massive impact, maybe even the decisive impact on how we live our lives. we are social beings, totally social beings. I think there can be this kind of false modern view of independence, you know, like we make ourselves, and like, who do you want to be when you grow up? And you just need to sort of imagine, you know, sort of really kind of think of your dream life, and let's really make it so, like on your own or something. But it's really not like that at all. We're completely bound to other people. Yeah, so important. Like we are social beings. It's part of who we are. So one of the sort of decisive things that we do in our lives, that we can do in our lives, in terms of deciding who we want to become, is then deciding who do we want to live our lives with, who do we want to share our lives with, who do we want to be with. And particularly I'm thinking here about spiritual community, the Sangha. And I actually, particularly in this, I want to sort of big up intensive situations. This is me kind of getting a bit more particular here. Intensive situations. So like situations whereby there's a complete sort of radical change in our usual way of operating. Being on retreat, going on retreat this weekend is a great example of that. You're changing things up. You're putting yourself in a position with other people, practicing together, talking about things. Maybe, you know, like, yeah, putting your phone down for the afternoon, changing things up a bit, giving our sense of kind of a break from our usual habits, so that we can really together move towards something completely new, something that's vibrant and alive. And for myself, for me, a complete turning point in my life was going on the Dharma Life course at Adhisthana. Shantikara mentioned this 5-month course. It's not quite the right word, really. It's like kind of a 5-month life of living another life for 5 months. Moved to Adhisthana with a bunch of other guys, things like 8 or 9 of us that I'd never met before. Well, no, I had met before, but not really very much. And then just living together for 5 months, meditating, studying, having a laugh, watching films, doing all sorts, really. But there was this point during that time, it's maybe a few months in, where it was just like it's hard to describe, but it's like this awareness dawned on me that I had no idea how entrenched I was in the ways of being that in my kind of the life that I lived before. There was so much that was good about it. So many good things were in that life, but particularly though I had the sense of I'd just been going with the flow of society and following those channels, thinking I had to do this, I had to get this particular kind of job, I had to do that. And it was like suddenly there was this noticing that was a habit, that was a collective habit, something that kind of imbibed from the people around me, in the world around me, and I don't have to do that. And I remember just feeling I would not have seen that. I really felt this, and I'm not saying this is true for everybody, this is just my personal experience, but I don't think I would have seen that if I hadn't have had that time to sort of drop out of the usual ways of being and to be with other people in something this kind of other world, where could sort of a new vision, a new fresh seeing of things could emerge. So yes, so I'll kind of really just encourage you to sort of think, well, if you feel so inclined, take a risk, look for something where you can really throw yourself in. I don't know if there's space at Adhisthana, because I know, like, might kind of land something on Shantikara here, but he's nodding, good. He's really trying to build something there with bringing young people there, you know, seeing that there's working guests, seeing Gina there and Ben and you know, like Caroline living there, and sort of, it's so exciting what Shantikara is trying to build there, and then that's a particular sort of place where that might happen. But so, like, if you feel inspired, don't kind of hold yourself back, and really ask yourself, you know, really question the kind of what ifs, or the sort of doubts, or the sort of thoughts of oh, I couldn't do that, because at the very least, keep going on retreat, find those situations with other people. But and as I was saying, and ultimately, so like other people are important, not just because it's there who influence us, but because we can build together, we can actually do something far, far greater than what we can do on our own. This creative mind, it's not just an individual thing. It has the nature of breaking down the barriers, of reaching out to others and to all life, and to ultimately to transforming the world, to changing the habit of world to sort of, yeah, to something fully creative mind with a capital M that doesn't, that includes all life, where there's no distinction between ourselves and others. Okay, I think I'll stop there.